Today we're going to be working on So this project was broken up into two videos. I have another video that's linked in the description that has that whole background, that flying through space and having all the different items moving around. And then in this one, we're just going to be making the title or logo animation that we'll be adding. If you're going to be using a logo, it just has to be a logo that's transparent. Or it has transparency so that it's almost like the shape's cut out. But I'm just going to be using the text tool, so you can follow along with that. Any place that I have the text tool, you can just replace it with a logo. So let's just get started. Here's DaVinci. We're gonna go right over into Fusion. And then once in Fusion, open up the media pool, right click in here, new Fusion comp, and we will we'll create one at 24 frames. You can create yours at whatever you want. Double clicking on it. Once the media out is here, then we are good to go. And then the next thing that we're going to do is we're just going to pull in that text. And I'm just going to add a little bit of text here. And I'm going to preview this text by bringing it up here. So you probably see two screens if this is your first time in Fusion. You just drag it up to one and release, and then you'll see it in that viewer. And then we're just gonna click this button so that we just see one viewer for now, because we don't really need to see two. And I'm just gonna change some font here quick. That's fine. All right, so to make this, we need to have pieces of it cut out to have that like glitching effect. Typically, we would just add in a mask, right? And then we would just move the mask, and then we would have a bit that's cut out. Like if we go to two screens and I view this mask, we can see in the white is the piece that's visible, and then in the back, the black isn't visible. So we're going to be creating something similar to this, but it's going to be a little bit more complex. So we're just going to delete this rectangle because we don't need it right now. The tool that we're going to be using that drives pretty much this whole animation is the TV tool. So this is typically to make, if you're compositing some type of like a tube TV into a set somewhere, it'll give you scan lines. It'll also give you a little bit of warping and noise. It does really well also. So we'll just bring this in here, and we're just going to grab a background node. And we're going to take this background node and feed it into the TV. And then once we do that, we can see that it's the background, because that is going to, typically you would feed in whatever you want to have viewed with all of these effects added. So for now, just to show you how this works, I'm just going to make this red, and we're just going to view this TV node up here. And as you can see, we have a couple of different things. If I zoom in here, we have scan lines that are here, which would kind of be like a tube TV. So I'm just going to click on my TV, and I'm going to remove those. And right now, if I zoom in, there's like speckles, and that's kind of like your noise. So we want to use that noise, but modify it just a little bit. So if we click our first little button here, it's the noise one, and let's just bring this into the middle. If I increase this power, it's just having a more contrasty noise to signal in there. So if I move this up, so this slider only goes to 20, but you can click in here and change the value to whatever you want. So if I make it 50, then noise is more pronounced and you can see it a lot more. So that's the first thing that we would want to do. The other thing is the size. If we increase the size, you'll see that the noise is starting to get bigger. So all we're going to do is just increase the size until we get something that we like. So let's try 20. 23. Okay, so that's pretty much the noise that we'd want. Now if I take my playhead right here, this orange is my playhead, and I move it over here by just clicking and sliding, and I play this, the noise isn't moving, and typically noise would move. So I'm just going to come to the beginning here, and we have this random. If we spin it, it animates that noise. So we're just going to keyframe at frame 0. As you can see over here, it says what frame we're currently on and frame 0. And then we'll slide this to the other end down here and we'll increase this. And I'm just going to increase it by 0.7. So let's come back to the beginning and play this. And we have noise dancing about. So that looks like that'd be pretty good. If we then connect this into the mask of the text and we view it, we'll see that nothing has happened. So what we need to do is we need to state how this mask is going to manipulate the text. So to do that, we would come over to the settings, and then down here in channel, we'll just change this to luminance. And now we can see we're starting to affect this. But the majority of it, it's either the gray, it's white, gray, or light gray. So to change that a little bit, I'm going to come into my background and I'm going to move all of these to 0. So if I bring this down here, they'll all go to 0, and then I can move the alpha down as well. And then this is kind of the signal that we have. If I come to the beginning and play it, now we have it dancing. If we take a look at the text that I had in the video here, what you notice is that it's kind of like spreading. So what we need to do is now add that spreading effect in there. To do that, we're going to grab an ellipse tool and bring the ellipse tool in. And if we just view the ellipse tool, it's just a circle. And to have it spread out, we could like change the width, but then we kind of get like a wonky look going there. So we're just going to right click on the width, go to expression, and then we're just going to grab this plus, drag it down to the height, and it's going to grab the height value. So now the width will copy the height value. So if I increase this, it'll go up and down. So we always have a perfect circle. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to uncheck solid, and then the border width, we're going to increase that. So if I view this now, by connecting this into the mask on how this TV node will work, and we view that TV node, now we have this kind of a look going here. And all we would have to do is bring it in and go out, just like that, to create that. But we have like a really hard edge here. So I'm going to come back to my ellipse tool and drag it up here. All we're going to do is just soften the edges here. So we get something like that. And now, if I view this, now we kind of have soft edges, and we can go in and go out and get that kind of an effect. Now let's do a side by side and bring the text up here. And as I increase this, you'll see that, so we're cutting this in so many different levels. We first have the ellipse tool, which is cutting the TV, and then the TV and the ellipse tool are passing a signal to the text, and then that signal is being cut by the shape of the text, but the shape of the text is being cut by all of this. So that's kind of just how this whole thing is driven by this ellipse tool. So it just goes out like that. Okay, so that's kind of all we have to do. So we're going to come to, we have to figure out how we want to have this animated. I'm just going to come to, I don't know, a little bit ways in here. So like, let's just go frame 10, just randomly picking frames here. Your project is going to vary upon your frame rate and how you want it to look, but I'm just going to bring it into 0 so we don't see anything, and a keyframe here, and then just come up a bunch of frames and then increase it so that it goes all the way out, and then it's not visible here anymore. And so now I have the 2 keyframes. So if I play this, that's kind of where we're at. All right. The other thing that we would want to do is colorize this. So if we come into our text tool and then go to the styling tab, we can then change this color to whatever we want. Currently, it's kind of hard to see. So out of this, we'll just hit Shift Spacebar and do a brightness contrast node, and then just increase the gain just a little bit. And we're going to want to view this here. So we drag it up here. Now we can see it there. So we bring it back. There is our effect. Now, to have the second color come in, we're going to do pretty much the same exact thing. So we can just take all of this, except for the brightness, because we can feed both of these into that brightness. So we'll just take these here, and we'll copy them, and then we'll paste them. And now that we have them pasted, there's a couple of similar things that are happening. And it's pretty much that all of this is just doing the same thing on both nodes. So we really don't even need any of that. So we could just take this, drag it into here, and now if we view this over here, we have the same thing that's happened. So we just change this color to something else. So let's change it to, let's go with red, sure. And now we have that red effect. Let's connect both of these together so we can have them go into the brightness, play the brightness over here. Now play them together. And now they're mixing colors. So this isn't exactly how mine looks. So we have to change one more thing. Coming out of this text node, I'm going to hit Shift Spacebar to bring up our search tool and type in transform. So we got our transform node, and then I'm going to ever so slightly, let's just come back so I can see them. I'm going to ever so slightly modify the one color size. So now they both look identical. They're both doing the same exact thing. It's just one is smaller than the other, so it looks like a double effect like that, which looks pretty cool. So that's kind of how the first part of this is built. Now we have to add in the part where the text comes in as a solid. So we have that same effect, but then it comes in as a solid. So to do that, we're pretty much just going to copy everything at the top here. I'm going to copy that and bring that down, because it's pretty much the same effect that we want to go for. And we'll just view it over here. So we view it, and it's that same sort of effect. But what we're going to change with this one is we're going to change the timing just a little bit on this ellipse tool. The other thing that we're going to change is we're going to make it come in as a solid. So it comes in the middle. So I'm going to come up here to the spline editor. I'm going to click this button to just select it. So this one's highlighted, so it's only showing that one. Come into our height. Now we have all of this. If we play all of these play this over here, we can kind of get an idea. This is how far out this is. And then this is this video down here. Let me just change the color of this so it's a little easier to tell what we're looking at. Come back over to our ellipse. And then we're just going to move this out just a little bit. So now if this plays, it's kind of following suit. I think I want to bring it back just a little bit because I want it to start a little bit earlier. Something like that. So by the time this is empty, this one's coming in. I think just a couple more frames. So probably like that. All right, let's connect these both together and get a better idea of what we're looking at here. All right, so now we kind of have this effect coming in, but as we play, it's not getting rid of this effect and becoming a solid. So we have to change that. So the easiest way to change that is just to come into where we feel that it's filled up this whole thing pretty solid. And if we just view this, we can see where we start and stop. So we come in, and I would say we stop right about there is where the end of this finishes. We're going to come back just a little bit. So like right here, and I'm going to come over because this is doing a lot of that cutting, and I'm going to animate this blend. And animating the blend, let's come back over to here and bring this up. But animating this blend, what will end up happening is that text will come in and then it'll become solid. So that's kind of what we are after here. So are we at the right spot? Let's view this over here again. Let's go back up. So as it kind of fills out that whole thing, like right there, we're going to then have the this animate. couple of frames. So it animates on. All right, so then the one other thing that you'll notice is as this is coming on, it's kind of just like staying on, right? So we have the color and we have alpha down to 0. The other thing that we're going to do is we're also going to cut this background node. So we'll just connect this up and then it'll animate on as well, and it'll have that little bit of animation there with it glitching around, and it'll show everything. And then we have the keyframes in here for this to then become solid. And then that's kind of the animation itself. So if I view this over here and we come back, it's kind of revealing itself. Now, if you wanted this to be longer, you just, extend the keyframes. If you want it to be shorter, you bring the keyframes together. There was one other subtle thing that we ended up adding. And that other subtle thing is currently this merge has this white thing, or this white text as the background and everything else as the foreground. If we were to switch that by clicking on it and then hitting Control T, it'll switch them. What I can now do is in this merge, I can change the size of this text here. So I'm going to do that, and what I ended up doing is when it was like, as that inner text was coming out, it was becoming bigger. So I'm going to start this at like 0.9, and then I'm going to keyframe it, and then as it comes out and it becomes solid, maybe come out like even a bit more, I go to 1. So it's very subtle with it becoming bigger, but I think I actually want it even before it becomes visible, have it always moving, just like that. I'm gonna grab this end keyframe for this merge and then just hit F to ease it and just leave it just the way it is. And that's kind of how we end up creating this text. So now I have to add it in with the render that we did in the other video. So to get this in a state that we can put it onto the timeline, because it's a Fusion comp, we can just take it from being a Fusion comp, put it on the timeline. But let's say we're working on a really big project and we don't want to have it also go through Fusion to render. I don't know. You might not, or maybe your computer struggles with this particular animation. So let's just render it and then put it on the timeline. But we also need to have the alpha channel because we have so much stuff that has to seep through to make this effect look good. So all we're gonna do is at the end here, I'm just gonna click, hit Shift Spacebar, and type Saver to get a Saver node. And we're just going to connect this merge into the Saver node. And then on the Saver node, we're just going to click Browse, go into Browse, come back. Let's just make a folder here. Great. Save this. And then we'll leave it at EXR. It's fine. Hit Save. Once it's in here, the majority of these other settings we can just leave. They're perfectly fine. We're just going to come up to Fusion and then click Render All Saver Nodes, and then it'll render this. And then once it's done, if you get this warning where it says it's not complete, that's perfectly fine. Just take a look at what it said. It stopped at was successful, so frame 68. We'll just hit OK. And we'll change this first thing to 68, and then we'll just come up here to Fusion and then click the save to have this render again, and it'll render the rest of the frames. If it stops again, just go through the whole process again by changing it. And then once that's done, come back over to the edit page, and then we have to find the thing that we just exported. And then here is the file that we exported. We just go click on the first one, scroll down, click on the last one, have them all highlighted. All I hit is Control to click on the last one. They're all highlighted. We just drag this into here. And then once we do that, we can bring our output down. So this is everything without that title. Bring this down just a little bit. And then we'll bring our title in. And then we have our title here. And at the end, our title just kind of hangs out for a bit. So I'm just going to cut off a little bit on the end. I'll bring it like that. And then now we have them both already pre-rendered. They play back real quick. No problems. And I can go about rendering the rest of this. If this was like an intro sequence and I just wanted to have something completely rendered, I could have this here, maybe add in some type of audio that matches your project, and then render out this small little portion. And then when you're working on bigger projects, you just bring in that one file instead of having to find the title, the background, the audio. You just render that one file out, and you would just use the normal renderer to render out that file, and then you would just take that file that you had done and then just plop that into your next project. So that's kind of all it is. It's not that difficult once you see that there's little pieces here and there that you can use and have them all work together. But with that being said, let me know in the comments what you guys think about this one. If you have any other ideas or suggestions, leave them down below. And like I said, if you want to build this background, there is a link down in the description to the tutorial on how I made it. If you just want to download these, you can do that as well. There's a link in the description. But with that being said, my name's JR, and thanks for watching.